My family humiliated my wife at dinner, so I raised their rent and took back every house they lived in. Hi, I'm Jake, 34, and 3 Sundays ago, I discovered there's a special kind of peace that comes from watching terrible people realize they've been living inside your Monopoly board. Let me set the table. Literally. My wife Sophie and I were invited to my brother Calvin's birthday dinner. Now, normally, these dinners already feel like emotional jury duty, except the jury is racist, and the defendant is my wife for existing. But Sophie? She's an optimist. She still thinks my family can be won over. In her words, maybe tonight will be different. It wasn't. We walked into my parents' house at 6 p.m. sharp, with a homemade cake Sophie had spent 3 hours perfecting, and instantly knew something was off. Music playing. Guests everywhere. New furniture. Fresh paint. A centerpiece that cost more than my first car. All in a house I quietly own. But of course, they don't know that. My family lives in a fantasy world where they're financially stable, hardworking, morally upright Americans, and I'm just the weird younger brother with the landlord hobby. We walked in, and my sister-in-law Patricia greeted us with the enthusiasm of someone needing a pothole. "Oh, you made it," she said. Translation: we hoped you wouldn't. Their teenage daughter Brittany was lounging on the couch with her 2 identical clone friends, bleached hair, name brand everything, faces permanently stuck in resting judgment mode. They looked Sophie up and down like she was a thrift store return. Then the whispering started. "She's not from here, right? Is she even legal? My mom said she only married him for the papers." And Sophie heard every word. She sat there quietly, polite smile frozen on her face, scrolling her phone like she hadn't just been hit with 3 microaggressions and 1 macro one. Fun fact: Sophie is a U.S. citizen, an ICU nurse, and speaks better English than the kids who were insulting her. But hey, why let facts interfere with casual racism? Dinner was called. Or rather, assigned. Because when we reached the dining room, Patricia had arranged a table that looked straight out of a magazine. Gold-trimmed china. Cloth napkins shaped like swans. A floral arrangement big enough to hide behind during a hostage situation. Everyone had assigned seats. Except us. Our names were on a tiny plastic folding table, in the hallway, next to the coat closet, with paper plates and plastic forks. I actually blinked, like maybe I was hallucinating or had stepped into a satire skit. And that's when Brittany sealed their fate. She walked past Sophie, smirked, and said loud enough for the entire dining room to hear, "We don't sit with your kind." Her kind. As if my wife was some sort of defective Costco membership. The entire room froze, but not because anyone was offended. No, they were just waiting to see if we'd make a scene. Not one adult corrected her. Not Calvin. Not Patricia. Not my parents. Just silence. Complicit, comfortable silence. Sophie squeezed my hand and whispered, "Let's just eat quickly and go." And maybe, I could have swallowed it. Until Patricia smiled and said, "The main table is for core family. I'm sure you understand. Core family. 3 years married, and apparently we were still the extended warranty." That was the moment something in me, something cold and efficient, slid into place. Not anger. Not shock. Just clarity. They had no idea that half the people in that room lived in properties I owned. My parents' house? On my deed. Calvin's house? My investment property. The duplex my uncle lived in? Mine. The little campus rental? Mine too. They had insulted my wife at a table I technically owned. And I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to plead for decency. No. I simply stood up, took out my phone, and started making calls. Because if they wanted to treat us like we were less, then they could learn what life looked like without my generosity. The moment I pulled out my phone, the entire dining room went silent. Not the regular kind of silence. Not the brace before dinner silence. No, This was the kind of silence you hear in documentaries right before a volcano erupts. I stepped away from the hallway table, the one with the plastic forks and $3 tablecloth, and dialed my property manager, Denise. She picked up immediately. "Hey, Jake." "What's up?" I kept my voice calm. Pleasant even. "Denise, I need you to initiate paperwork on 3 properties. Effective immediately." Across the room, Calvin paused mid-steak bite. Patricia's smile twitched. Brittany's phone stopped recording whatever TikTok she was making about how oppressed she felt without a BMW. "Which properties?" Denise asked. I listed them. First, the 4-bedroom Calvin and Patricia had been renting for years at nearly half market rate. Second, the duplex Uncle Howard and Aunt Kelly lived in, also heavily discounted. Third, a smaller house my cousin Brandon rented, not because I was evicting him, but because I needed paperwork updated for what I was about to do next. The whole table stared at me like I'd suddenly begun speaking in tongues. But I wasn't done. "Rent increases go into effect next month," I said loud enough for my entire family to hear. "We'll do market rate across all 3. Patricia's fork clattered onto her gold-rimmed plate. Calvin's face went pale, the same shade I imagine he'd turn if someone told him his fantasy football team got deleted. Denise, unaware of the silent panic behind me, just said, "No problem. I'll prep the forms tonight." "Great. You're a lifesaver," I replied and hung up. Then I dialed my real estate attorney, Mitchell. He didn't answer, Sunday dinner and all, so I left a voicemail in a voice that could have been used to narrate meditation apps. "Hey Mitchell, it's Jake. I need the deed transferred on the property at 1148 Oak Lane. Back to the original lender." My parents looked confused for a half-second, then horrified. "Because Oak Lane? That's their house. The one I bought for them when they were drowning in medical bills. The one they still think they own." I never corrected them because I didn't want to hurt their pride. Turns out, their pride was already doing just fine. My dad choked on his drink. My mom pressed a hand to her chest like she was reenacting a Lifetime movie heart attack. "You can't do that," she gasped. "Oh, I absolutely can," I said, smiling politely. And then I dialed my accountant. David answered on the first ring like he was expecting bad news from the IRS. "Jake? Everything okay?" "Everything's great," I said, letting my gaze drift deliberately across the main dining table. "I need to restructure my rental portfolio. Too many properties underpriced for sentimental reasons. I need everything shifted to full market rate categories." David hesitated. "All of them? That's a pretty big jump." "Yes," I said, still looking at the people who had just shoved my wife into hallway seating. "All of them." I hung up. Every single person at the main table was staring at me like I'd just murdered Santa in front of them. I pulled out Sophie's chair gently. She sat. I sat beside her. Then I looked straight at my family, not angry, not dramatic, just surgical, and said, "Since I'm apparently not core family, I'm done giving core family discounts." Calvin swallowed so hard I could hear it. Patricia's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like she was buffering. My mother whispered, What are you doing?" I folded my hands on the cheap folding table. "Teaching you all something your parents should have taught you years ago. You don't disrespect someone and still expect their generosity." Brittany scoffed. "You're being so dramatic. It was just a seating arrangement." I leaned back slowly. "No, Brittany. It was a line. And you crossed it face first." She rolled her eyes. Patricia hissed, "You can't raise our rent. We have kids." "Then you should have set a better example for them," I said, starting with not insulting my wife. Calvin jumped up from his chair. "This is insane. You're punishing all of us over nothing." "Nothing?" I repeated. "You don't seat family at the folding table like they're at airport standby." My father finally spoke. "Lower your voice," he barked. "We have guests." I smiled. "Oh, don't worry. They're about to be very interested." Because I wasn't done. Not even close. Here's the thing about a perfectly timed silence. It makes people panic harder than shouting ever could. My entire family stared at me like I just cancelled Christmas, arrested the Easter Bunny, and repossessed the Tooth Fairy's magic wand all at once. And then, because chaos loves company, Brittany opened her mouth again. Why are you freaking out? It's not like you actually own anything. Oh, sweetheart. She really said that out loud. In front of everyone. Patricia patted her hand proudly, as if her daughter had just solved a math equation instead of detonating a nuke. I mean, come on, Brittany added with a smug little snort. If you owned anything, you wouldn't drive that cheap Honda. Cheap Honda? My fully paid off, reliable, low-maintenance Honda. A car I chose over a $700 monthly ego payment. Calvin chimed in with a half laugh. Yeah, Jake. Don't act like you're some big financial hotshot. My mom nodded in agreement, like this was group therapy and not a live execution of her checking account. And that was it. That was the moment the room shifted. Not because I got angry, I didn't. Because I went calm. Bone deep. Ice cold. Heart surging calm. I took out my phone again. Okay, I said. Since we're doing this, let's do it properly. Calvin scoffed. What, are you gonna call another lawyer? No, I said. This call is for all of you. I dialed Denise, my property manager, again. She picked up instantly. Yes, Jake? Put me on speaker, I said. There was a beat. Then, okay. You're on. The whole dining room leaned in without meaning to. Denise, I said casually, how many properties do I currently own? There was the sound of keyboard tapping. 18, she said. Across 3 counties. Patricia's smile faltered. Can you list the addresses? I asked. Sure. Starting with the house on Sycamore Lane. That's ours, Calvin whispered. Denise kept going. The duplex on Harper Street. Uncle Howard froze, fork suspended mid-air. The Oak Lane property. My mother made a sound like a balloon dying. The Maple Street house. And that's Brandon's, I said softly. Patricia's eyes darted back and forth like she was watching her life savings get auctioned off one mortgage at a time. Denise, I said, am I the listed owner for all of these? Yes, she replied. You're the sole owner on all deeds. And you've kept everyone's rent well below market. Even the rent-free arrangement for your parents. Rent-free. My father's jaw clenched so tight I swear it cracked. Now the whole table was staring at me with a new expression. Fear. Real sharp, dawning fear. Thanks, Denise, I said. That's all I needed. I hung up and let the silence settle again. It was delightful. Finally, Patricia spoke. But you never raised our rent. Because I was stupid, I said. I thought helping you was the right thing. Turns out, I was just financing the arrogance I sat through tonight. Calvin swallowed. Look, Jake, maybe we were a little rude. A little rude? I repeated. Calvin, you stuck my wife at a folding table like she was a distant cousin from Craigslist. Patricia jumped in, defensive. Sophie shouldn't take it so personally. We just have traditions. Traditions? I raised an eyebrow. Your tradition is embarrassing yourselves? Brittany rolled her eyes. Oh my God, can you stop being dramatic? She's used to people like us not wanting to sit with her anyway. That was the sentence. The sentence that broke the last thread of restraint in the room. Sophie inhaled sharply, not crying, just, done. I stood. And in a voice calm enough to make the hairs on Calvin's neck stand up, I said, Congratulations, Brittany. You just cost your parents $800 a month. Calvin lurched forward. You can't seriously. I already did. I cut in. But we can't afford that. Patricia cried. Then you should have afforded basic decency. I said. My father slammed his hand on the table. Jake, enough. But I wasn't speaking to him anymore. I looked at Sophie, who was quietly gathering her purse, the picture of dignity. You ready? I asked her softly. She nodded. And as we turned to leave, I added one more line, a line that flipped the room from fear to full meltdown. By tomorrow morning, every single one of you will know what it feels like to sit at the folding table. And then we walked out. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just done. But what happened after we left? That was the beautiful part. We walked out of that house like we were walking away from a slow-motion explosion, except the explosion happened behind us. Because we hadn't even pulled out of the driveway before my phone started lighting up. Calvin calling. Patricia texting paragraphs that looked like ransom notes. My mother sending guilt-tripped voice messages in shaky opera vibrato. I ignored all of it. Sophie stared quietly out the window as we drove home, the streetlights flickering across her face. After a few minutes, she said, "You didn't have to do that for me." I glanced over. "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it because they forgot who they were dealing with." She looked at me, relief and exhaustion tangled together. "Can we just not talk about them tonight?" she asked. Done. So we went home. Put on pajamas. Ate leftover cheesecake in bed. Watched reruns of a cooking show where contestants panic over burned risotto. It was the first time all evening either of us felt like breathing normally. Monday morning? That was the day the fire reached the gas line. 8:07 a.m. Denise called. "Just giving you an update," she said cheerfully. "Official rent adjustment notices were delivered to your brother, your uncle, and your cousin. Certified mail. Signatures confirmed." "Perfect," I said. 8:22 a.m. Calvin called 16 times. Sophie muted the phone and said, "He seems upset." Her deadpan should be studied. 8:38 a.m. My mother texted, "Jake, your father is livid. You've broken this family. Fix it immediately." I replied with one word. 9:10 a.m. My dad called. He didn't yell. Didn't rage. Didn't lecture. He used the tone. The same tone he used when I dented his truck at 16. The same tone that meant, "I'm disappointed," layered with, "You're supposed to obey me." "Jake," he said, "you will reverse whatever you did today." "No," I said simply. "You don't talk to your father that way. You don't talk to my wife that way," I said back. The silence that followed could have shattered granite. "You're punishing all of us over a teenage girl's comment." "That's the problem," I said. "You think it was just a teenage girl. She learned it from all of you." My dad inhaled sharply. "Your mother is crying. She can cry in the house I bought her," I said, "until the bank finishes the paperwork." He lost it. "You ungrateful little..." Click. Call ended. I turned to Sophie, who was drinking her morning tea. She asked calmly, "So, is your family imploding?" "Yes," I said. "Beautifully." She took another sip. "Good." By noon, the group chat was 137 messages deep. I didn't read a single one. But Brandon, my cousin, the only one with a functioning moral compass, texted me privately. "Dude, Patricia is melting down. Calvin looks like he aged 10 years. Your mom is saying a prayer over the stove. This is wild." Then, "Also, thank you. For Sophie. For not letting them get away with it. I appreciated that. Because honestly, my cousin was the only one in that room who even flinched when they stuck my wife at the folding table." At 2:40 p.m., Patricia showed up. At my office. Without calling. Without warning. My receptionist buzzed me. Jake? There's a woman here crying. And I mean, crying." I sighed. "Does she look like she organizes school fundraisers and judges other parents for bringing store-bought cupcakes?" "Yes," my receptionist said immediately. "Send her in." Patricia stumbled in, blotchy-faced, mascara smudged, holding a stack of papers like they were her last will and testament. "Jake, please," she sobbed. "You can't do this to us." I leaned back in my chair. "You already did this to yourselves." She dropped the papers on my desk, the new rental contract showing their $800 increase. "We can't afford this. We just redid the house. We have a Sweet 16 to plan. Brittany needs braces. Calvin's job has the same salary it had when I started subsidizing your life." I finished for her. "Just tell us what to do," she begged. "We'll apologize. Brittany will apologize. We'll all apologize. Just give us another chance." I folded my hands. "Patricia, respect is not something you bargain for after your bills are due." She blinked through her tears. What does that even mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "that you can't treat my wife like trash on Sunday, then expect a family discount on Monday." She broke, fully, loudly, dramatically. "I'm begging you," she sobbed. "If you do this, we'll lose everything. Then you should have valued the one thing that was free," I said. "Basic decency." She left in tears. And I felt absolutely nothing. By evening, the fallout had gone nuclear. My mother sent a voice message that sounded like she was auditioning for a tragedy play. My father emailed me a multi-paragraph manifesto about family honor. Calvin sent increasingly desperate texts. "Jake, we're family. Jake, please be reasonable. Jake, you can't do this. Jake, answer your phone right now." I didn't respond. Because the rude truth? This wasn't about money. This was about respect. And for the first time in my life, every single person in that house was realizing exactly whose generosity they'd been living on. And whose patience had finally run out. Monday evening rolled around, and while Sophie and I were cooking dinner like normal functioning adults, my entire extended family was apparently reenacting a historical collapse. At 6:17 p.m., Calvin finally broke through the denial stage and entered pure panic. My phone buzzed nonstop. "Jake, pick up. We need to talk now." "Are you kidding me?" "Answer your phone. Please. Please. Please." Sophie was chopping onions and said, without looking up, "Is that your brother or a dying raccoon?" "Hard to tell," I said. She smirked. "Add salt." At 7:04 p.m., my mother left a voicemail so dramatic it deserved a standing ovation. She sniffled. She trembled. She invoked Jesus. She invoked my dead grandmother. She invoked the sanctity of blood. She ended it with, "Fix this, Jacob. Fix this. Or this family will never be the same." I hit delete. Out loud. Sophie applauded. At 7:40 p.m., my father called. This time, he didn't yell. He didn't lecture. He didn't scold. He sounded tired. "Jake," he said. "Son, you made your point. It's time to undo this." "My point isn't made yet," I said. "You're acting like a child. And you're acting like a landlord," I replied. He exhaled sharply. "You're really going to push your own parents out of their home?" "I bought that home for you," I said calmly. "Not for you to weaponize your prejudices inside it." Silence. Then, quietly, "Your mother didn't mean any harm. She never does," I said, "and yet somehow she always manages it." "Don't do this," he said softly. I hung up. At 8:13 p.m., Uncle Howard called, but he wasn't yelling. He sounded resigned. "Jake," he said, "I can't argue with what you did. Kelly and I saw what happened at dinner. We knew it was wrong. I appreciated that. Genuinely. But please, just give us some time," he said. "We're on fixed income. We'll pay the new rate, we just need an extra month." That I honored. "Howard," I said, "you've never disrespected Sophie a day in your life. You get 60 days. He exhaled like I'd just handed him a winning lottery ticket. "Thank you, son. Thank you. This is the thing no one else got, Respect gets respect. And Howard had always been decent. At 9:02 p.m. I got a text from Brandon, the cousin who'd been the only one uncomfortable at dinner. Dude. Just wanted to say. You did the right thing. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. I should have. I texted back. You're good. Your rent stays the same. He replied with a string of shocked messages and one photo of him giving a thumbs up from what looked like a Taco Bell drive-thru. That kid is going to be okay. Then came Tuesday. And that was the day things really spiraled. At 10:15 a.m. My parents' attorney contacted me. Yes. They hired a lawyer. Not to apologize. Not to negotiate. To sue me. For elder abuse. I nearly spit out my coffee. The attorney, a polite man with the voice of someone who hadn't slept well, said, Mr. Thompson, your parents insist you promised them the house permanently. Did they show you the deed? I asked. Yes, he said. Your name is clearly the only owner listed. Did they show you proof they paid for it? Silence. Well, no. Did they show you bank transfers? No. So, what exactly are they suing me for? He exhaled. Honestly? Nothing. They have no case. They just insisted on filing. Of course they did. People who had lived rent-free for years couldn't handle being treated the same as any other tenants. Entitlement is a hell of a drug. The attorney apologized. I told him no hard feelings, he was doing his job. The complaint was dismissed within hours. At 4:22 p.m. Calvin showed up at my office unannounced. Red-faced. Breathing hard. Sweating through his dress shirt. My receptionist whispered, Should I call security? Not yet, I said. He barged in without knocking. What the hell is wrong with you? He yelled. You're blowing up the entire family. I leaned back in my chair. No, I said. I'm simply pulling the plug on the free ride. You're making us look like idiots. You did that, I said. When you let your daughter treat my wife like garbage while you sat there like wallpaper. He slammed his fist on my desk. You're going too far. You went too far first. You can't expect us to just suddenly pay market rent. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't complain when you were paying half. Calvin's voice broke. We can't afford $2,200 a month. I shrugged. Then maybe you should have thought of that before funding Britney's TikTok wardrobe. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I'm begging you, he said. Please. Don't do this. I stared at him for a long moment. Then said, You should have begged your daughter to be respectful. He froze. I stood and walked around the desk. You all made your choices Sunday night, I said. And choices come with consequences. He swallowed hard. And Jake? Yes? This isn't over. Oh, I said, opening the office door for him. It absolutely is. He left shaking. And that day, that exact moment, was when the true fallout began. Because the consequences didn't stop with them. They spread. Fast. Calvin's threat, "This isn't over," turned out to be the single funniest lie of the year. Because by Wednesday morning, it was over. Just not in the way he expected. It started with Patricia's meltdown going public. At 8:12 a.m., Brandon sent me a screenshot from Facebook with the caption, "Bro, you need to see this." Patricia had made a long, melodramatic post, written in the emotional handwriting of a middle school diary. Families should treat each other with love, not cruelty. Some people forget where they came from once they make a little money. We're praying through this difficult time. There were crying emojis. There were Bible quotes. There were passive-aggressive subtweets shaped like icicles. The comment section was already a circus. Aunt Kelly wrote, "Call me." My mom wrote, "Stay strong." Some distant cousin wrote, "So sorry, hun, sending prayers." And then a random coworker wrote, "Didn't you guys just remodel your kitchen again?" No response. At 9:05 a.m., I got a call from the bank handling my parents' house transfer. Mr. Thompson, we've reviewed the documents you submitted. We just need one more signature from your parents to complete the ownership reversion. Perfect. My parents, apparently, were less thrilled. At 10:31 a.m., my mom texted, "This is the cruelest thing anyone has ever done to us. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. You're destroying your father." I replied, "I bought that roof 5 years ago. And you let your family humiliate my wife under it. Enjoy your new mortgage." She didn't text back. At 11:48 a.m., Uncle Howard called. "Hey, Jake," he said carefully. "Kelly and I talked. We're gonna move. Rent's fair, we just can't swing it long term." I respected that. "I'll give you the full security deposit back," I said. "You always treated Sophie with respect." "Thanks," he said, genuinely touched. Unlike the others, we ended the call on good terms. In an entire family tree of cheap fireworks, Howard was the one unspectacular sparkler. Then came 1:23 p.m., a true highlight. My office receptionist buzzed me again. Jake? There's someone in the lobby, crying." "Calvin or my mother?" I asked. "Neither," she whispered. "It's Brittany." Oh, this was rich. I stepped into the hallway. Sure enough, there she was, 16 years old, eyeliner streaked, mascara smudged, wearing a hoodie with some expensive brand name on it. She looked like someone who just learned food stamps weren't a fashion accessory. She stood up, wiping her eyes. "Uncle Jake, can we talk?" I didn't move. "What's wrong?" I asked flatly. She sniffed hard. "Mom and Dad are freaking out. They said if the rent goes up, we might have to move." "That's correct," I said. "You will." Her face crumpled again. "But my friends live in that neighborhood. I've lived there my whole life. If we move, I'll have to change schools." "That tends to happen," I said, "when your parents can't afford a house." She stared at me, confused. "But they could afford it before." "Right," I said, because I was covering the difference. She blinked. Slowly. Painfully. "Why would you do that?" "Because I thought you were family." She looked down. Then whispered, "I'm sorry." I waited. For what, exactly? Her lip trembled. For what I said to Sophie. I didn't mean it like that. My friends were watching. I was trying to impress them. By insulting my wife? She nodded miserably. "You know," I said, "apologies matter more when they don't come with consequences attached." She wiped her face again. "Can you please stop the rent increase? I'll apologize to Sophie. I'll apologize to everyone. I'll make a video if you want. Just, please don't make us move." I paused. Waited. Then said, "Brittany, this is exactly why you needed a consequence." She stared at me, devastated. But. "No," I said gently. "Actions cost something. You're old enough to learn that." Her eyes welled up again. "You're so mean," she whispered. I shook my head. "No. I'm just done being generous to people who spit on my wife." She ran out of the lobby crying. My receptionist peeked over the counter and whispered, "Are you sure she's 16? She screams like she's 4. At 3:12 p.m., Brandon texted me. "Bruh. You broke Brittany. She just announced at school she's in her humble era. That alone was worth $800 a month." By 5 p.m., the widened fallout had become crystal clear. Calvin and Patricia were scrambling, arguing, and digging through their finances like raccoons in a dumpster. My parents were calling every bank in town trying to negotiate senior sympathy loans. Uncle Howard and Aunt Kelly were packing boxes. Brittany was apparently rethinking her entire personality. And Brandon was eating popcorn. But the best part? Sophie had no idea how crazy the day had been. She came home from her ICU shift, exhausted, still in scrubs. I greeted her at the door. She asked, "Did your family implode today?" "Completely," I said. "It was amazing." She kissed my cheek and said, "Good. They had it coming." And that right there? That was the moment I knew I hadn't married a saint, I'd married a queen. But the fallout still wasn't done. Because Thursday was when the consequences grew teeth. Thursday morning started with the kind of phone call that makes you sit up in bed smiling before you're even fully awake. Not because it was pleasant, but because it was predictable. It was Calvin. And he was feral. He didn't even say hello. He just exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Oh yeah," I said, stretching. "And it was awesome. We can't move," he shouted. "Patricia is losing it. Brittany's sobbing. Austin is panicking. Emma is asking if we're going to be homeless. Do you want to traumatize my children?" I took a sip of water. "You traumatized your own kids when you taught them their mother is allowed to treat my wife like dirt. You're unhinged." "Probably," I said. "But the rent's still due." He made this angry choking noise like a lawnmower that swallowed a brick. Then, "Jake, please. We can't afford $2,200. You couldn't afford $1,400 either," I said. "That's why you've never saved money." He sputtered. "This is extortion." "No," I said. "This is math." Click. He hung up. Sophie rolled over, half asleep. "Is that your brother melting down again?" "Yep." She patted my arm. "Good boy." At 9 a.m. I got a call from the property management office that handled maintenance requests for all my rentals, including Calvin's. The receptionist sounded hesitant. "Jake? We got a work order from someone at 447 Maple?" "That's my brother's place," I said. "What's the issue?" She paused. "Well, it says urgent. House falling apart. Possibly unsafe for children." I smiled. "Did they include any details?" "Yes. The issues are listed as wobbly stair railing, loose doorknob, dishwasher making a weird sound." I blinked. "So, normal wear and tear?" "Yes." "Anything actually dangerous?" "No." "Great," I said. "Close the work order." She sounded relieved. "You got it." She hung up. A minute later, Calvin texted, "Why did you deny my repair request? We have children in this house." I replied, "You have children who deserve better parents. The railing can be tightened with one screw. The doorknob needs a $4 part. The dishwasher noise is because Patricia loads it wrong." Calvin replied. "How do you know how she loads it?" "Because I'd seen it. Once. And the dishwasher screamed like it was dying." At noon, Brandon came over for lunch, tacos Sophie made the night before. He walked in, dropped his backpack on the floor, and said, "Bro, your family is in full apocalypse mode." "Good. No, like there's damage." He sat down and pulled out his phone. "Okay. First off, Brittany didn't go to school today. Rumor is her meltdown yesterday went so nuclear that she tried to manifest a new reality by burning sage in her bathroom and set off the smoke detector." I laughed. "Continue." "Patricia Googled how to sue a landlord for discrimination and posted a screenshot of the search on Facebook thinking it was a regular status update. It got 42 laughing reacts. Amazing." "And Calvin," Brandon said, "spent the morning asking coworkers if anyone knows a landlord who will rent to them with zero savings, 3 kids, and a dog." "Good luck," I said. "It gets better," Brandon said. "Your parents?" "Yes. They're telling everyone you stole their house and are spreading rumors that Sophie hypnotized you." I almost choked on my taco. "Hypnotized?" "Yeah," he said. "Your mom said, and I quote, 'Ever since he married that foreign girl, he doesn't think straight.'" I looked at him. Brandon winced. Sorry. I know it's messed up. No, I said. It's perfect. Perfect? Perfect for part 2. Brandon blinked. Part 2? I smiled. Oh, you thought I was done? No. That was step 1. His eyebrows shot up. What's step 2? I leaned back in my chair. Teaching them accountability. Brandon sat up straighter. You're scaring me, but I'm invested. Good, I said. Because step 2 starts tonight. He shook his head. You're a menace. Yup. That night, Sophie came home exhausted from a 13-hour shift. She collapsed onto the couch next to me. Rough night? I asked. One family threw a chair. Another tried to bribe a doctor. 3 drunks came in bleeding. Typical. I stroked her hair. You want good news or bad news? Good first. Your karaoke version of family dinner destroyed 3 households. She snorted. Bad news? Step 2 begins tomorrow. She looked up at me, amused. What's step 2? You'll see. She narrowed her eyes playfully. Jake, you're planning something. Obviously. For them? For us. She smiled. A real smile. Then I like step 2 already. And I swear, right then, I knew exactly how part 8 would end. But first, I had to make Friday unforgettable. Friday morning, 6:45 a.m., sun barely up, birds chirping, coffee mug warm in my hand. And my phone buzzes with the single most ironic text message I've ever received. Dad, we'd like you and Sophie to come to dinner next week. As a family. We'll make room at the main table. I actually laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable in the most poetic way. The moment they felt consequences, suddenly Sophie was core family. Amazing how that works. But step 2 wasn't about getting invited back. It was about drawing a line they would never dare cross again. At 9:10 a.m., I drove to the bank to finalize the paperwork on my parents' house. They officially had 30 days to work out a new mortgage at current rates. No discounts. No bailouts. No family plan. The loan officer asked me, Are you sure about this? Yes. Yes, I was. Because Sophie had spent 3 years being polite to people who treated her like an inconvenience. And I'd spent 3 years watching it. That ended this week. By noon, it was time for step 2 for Calvin and Patricia. Not revenge. Not punishment. Clarity. I forwarded them the official, notarized updated lease, with full market rent, along with a simple message. Welcome to adulthood. Rent is due on the 1st. Calvin replied in seconds. So that's it? No negotiation? No reconsidering? That's it. We're family. Then you should have acted like it. He didn't respond after that. Because there was nothing left to argue. At 2:30 p.m. Uncle Howard texted me a photo of him and Aunt Kelly in their new duplex, smiling, boxes behind them. Thanks again, kid. We get why you did it. No hard feelings. Dinner at our new place soon? Actual adults. How refreshing. At 4:15 p.m., my receptionist buzzed me. Jake, your niece is here again. I sighed. Let her in. Brittany entered quietly this time. No theatrics, no attitude. Just a teenager with swollen eyes and a hoodie that looked 2 sizes bigger today. She stood in front of my desk and twisted her sleeves. Uncle Jake. I talked to my counselor today. I nodded. And she helped me realize. I was awful to Sophie. I know I can't fix everything, but could I please apologize to her? Not because of the rent. For real. That was different. That was humility, the first I'd ever seen from that side of the family. I nodded slowly. I'll ask Sophie if she wants to hear it. If she does, I'll let you know. She swallowed hard. Thank you. She turned to leave, then hesitated. And for what it's worth, I hope you don't hate us. I don't hate you, I said. I just finally stopped protecting you from yourselves. She nodded and left. Baby steps. But steps. Friday night, Sophie and I made dinner together, chicken adobo and roasted vegetables. She put on music, I poured us grape juice, and we ate by candlelight like people without chaos swirling around them. Halfway through the meal, she set her fork down. You know, she said softly, I never wanted you to do all of this for me. I know. And I wouldn't have asked? I know. She looked up at me. So why did you? I leaned back in my chair. Because you've spent 3 years being gracious to people who didn't deserve you. And I spent 3 years watching you give them chances they didn't earn. I couldn't watch you shrink yourself anymore just to make them comfortable. She exhaled, a sound somewhere between relief and release. I love you, she said. I love you more. She rolled her eyes. Impossible, mathematically. Watch me, I said. She laughed, a real laugh, and leaned across the table to kiss me. Saturday morning, we got coffee, walked through the farmer's market, and planned our next rental project. Not family drama. Not fallout. Not guilt or hesitation. Our life. Our choices. Our family. Sophie suggested turning the new duplex into international student housing. Somewhere safe, she said, for kids who come here alone and don't know where to start. I smiled. That's exactly what we'll do. Because generosity isn't the problem. Misplaced generosity is. And for the first time in years, every ounce of generosity in my life was going to the right people. A week later, Calvin texted, Are we still invited to the family dinner? I replied, We're busy. And we were busy building a life full of respect. Busy with people who valued what we gave. Busy with a marriage that had survived something corrosive and come out stronger. Did my family ever fully learn their lesson? Maybe. Maybe not. But here's what I know for sure. They never stuck Sophie at the folding table again. And if they ever tried? I had 18 properties worth of leverage to remind them exactly who they were dealing with.